Morning, everybody. My name is Peter Giuliano. I'm Chief Research Officer for the Specialty Coffee Association. And welcome to today's webinar that was inspired by the Community Impact Survey that we did a few weeks ago. And just as a little bit of recap, when we did that survey a few weeks ago, what we saw was the impact that COVID-19 was having on coffee businesses everywhere. And as we dug into the responses, we saw that there was some obviously, clearly, really serious impacts happening to coffee businesses. But we also saw that certain businesses were faring better than others, and that the ones that were faring better had developed certain insights or learnings that were able to help them survive during this time. So with the help of La Marzocco, we were, and the support of La Marzocco, we were able to put together a series of webinars designed to support businesses in exploring the different competencies that they might be able to learn in order to thrive and grow during this time. So I'm here with my co-host, Scott Callender, and what we're going to do is introduce you to a couple of business leaders from our community who've done something, one of these key disciplines. So today, we're going to be exploring the topic of coffee delivery and how it works. And to help us there are two owners of coffee businesses, one from the East Coast and one from the West. We've got Jeff Clinard, who's the owner of Bear Coast Coffee.
Hello.
Hey, Jeff. And we also have Sam Penix from the co-owner and CEO of Everyman Espresso in New York.
Hello.
Hey, Sam. Well, thanks so much for being here, both of you. And I know it's been our pleasure to talk with you a little bit about what your businesses have done over the past few weeks. There you are, Sam.
Hey, Sam.
Good to see you.
Hi.
And so, yeah, let's begin with you, Sam. You took some photos of what you're doing these days, and I know that your pivot to delivery has taken on a kind of a unique shape.
Yes, it has. Almost immediately as we were preparing to close down all three of our brick and mortar retail locations, I saw some projects that inspired me where restaurants were making food and collecting revenue and delivering that food to hospital workers. So I thought I would reach out to one of those organizations and see whether it would make sense for me to come on board as supplementary help for their organization, or maybe I would start a, coffee specific delivery service, pay it forward service for essential workers. Made more sense to do my own thing. So we set up fuelfrontlines.com, which is attached to our Square register, and started taking in revenue with the promise of paying that forward to hospital workers and all essential workers. Yeah.
That's great. Do we have some slides there that we can walk through? Yeah, I think they're up on the screen, Sam. Can you walk us through some of these pictures that you're using?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a photo of David from Chale, and I called up a few of my friends who own coffee shops in Manhattan and asked around whether they had coffee on hand that was going to go to waste. And this is a photo of David dropping off what was about $600 or so worth of counterculture coffee that they pulled from two of their locations. We've also pulled coffee from Third Rail, and I just got back like 10 minutes ago from Happy Bones over on Broome Street, where we got about 17 5-pound bags of coffee. And the idea would be that this project can help our supply chain and help our local retailers recover some of the lost money from product that otherwise is going to go to waste. And so we'll reduce waste, try to get them some cash, and hopefully eventually when we've gone through all of the coffee that we can pull safely from shops in Manhattan, we will buy coffee again from our roaster and help support them. Yeah, so this is me bagging up a condiment bag with cups and sugar and milks, getting ready to make one of the first, I think this was the first delivery that I did personally, because it was kind of a smaller one and it was on the fly. And I had a good friend of mine who's also a photographer come and follow me from the time that I started brewing coffee until, we can move to the next slide if you want to, until I made it to the hospital. Yeah, that's a nice one too. There I am again. Yeah. So you can see, you know, I've got my mask on, I've got my gloves on. Other than the photographer, I'm the only one in the space. There I am outside. There's David. That shows like part of how much coffee he brought in for us. Just keep it rolling. This is go back to that one really quickly, the drawing. So this is made by Charo, who Charo worked in coffee, and they are a good friend of mine and an artist. So I was like, I need some kind of image, if you wouldn't mind. And this is what they came up with in like 5 minutes, because they're a creative genius. And I've been using this image along with the project to kind of identify it. We can move on to the next slide there. This is me communicating with my contact person who is on her way into work. Her name is Jennifer Felix. She is a nurse at Bellevue, and I texted her letting her know that I was brewing the coffee and that I was going to be able to meet her on time as soon as she pulled up. The idea being that she was on her way into her shift, so I was going to come with 2 boxes of coffee and hand off to her so she could take it in and set it in her break room. You can move on to the next slide. See what that's about. Oh, that's me. This is me walking over to meet Jennifer. I was a little late because David, the photographer, was late. Ironic. Here we go. Starbucks, the park. This kind of guides you through the walk to Bellevue. This is there's Jennifer receiving the coffee, which is pretty cool. We've become fast friends, and we've been communicating a lot. Let me tell you quickly a little bit about her. We all know that these folks are sacrificing a lot. She's actually staying in a hotel, the Four Seasons, over on 57th Street, because she's a New Yorker. She lives in New York. She didn't travel here from outside, but she is quarantining herself from her son and her mother because she doesn't, want to have any risk of infecting them. So the city has provided healthcare workers with some hotel rooms so they can quarantine themselves from their household. So she's been taking her transport, which the hospital provides, to work, and I've been meeting her at about 6:30, 6:45 because her shift starts at 7, and then she was walking those in. This is how we started, with these smaller deliveries, but I wanted to move away from this because she's about to go in and work a 13-hour shift with half the staff and twice the patients. And I really don't want to see people like Jennifer have to carry the coffee in and add to their stress of meeting me and timing. So what we've been we've been dialing it in, so to speak, and making sure that like we're planning on people arriving and being able to get a cart or get a coworker to help them bring it in so that they're not precariously carrying the coffee, and it's less labor intensive. But we could go back to the last slide, actually. Go to, yeah, there we go. This is another way that the coffee gets there when we do the larger deliveries, and this is the most efficient way. We have a transport partner called Odeco. They're a tech company that helps us with our ordering and predictive ordering, but they also have been doing deliveries for some vendors prior to COVID. They have a truck, they have some delivery drivers. We've been working together to make sure that they have a safety protocol, that they have PPE to wear. So all these guys have N95 masks, they wear gloves, and they wear their masks when they come to pick up the coffee and when they deliver it. So you can see each of these large boxes holds about 50 cups of coffee, 8-ounce cups of coffee. And what we've been doing is trying to organize this so that we reach out to the connections that we've already made and say, you know, we're coming uptown. Everybody wants a delivery around 9 a.m. So I'm gonna, between like 8:45 and 9:45, I'm gonna hit 6 hospitals and just go and pick all the coffee up and go boom, boom, boom. And that's what we did yesterday. We brought in another partner that has a coffee shop uptown, so that Odeco doesn't have to come down to 13th Street and then drive 100 blocks north. So yesterday we picked up all of our coffee from Moony Coffee, which is a coffee shop and roastery. They have a couple locations up in Inwood, and it's owned by Serena Pravasi and her husband Elias. Elias is Ethiopian, so their whole thing is that they import coffees from Ethiopia, and they share the traditions and the culture around Ethiopian coffee with their guests. It's a really cool place, and they're both really, really wonderful. So yesterday they actually brewed the coffee, and I paid them out of my donations to brew for me, and then they added the deliveries that they already had to hospitals in their area for that day, and Odeco came, got everything, and within an hour it was all dropped off. So that's where we're trying to go to now, is to kind of scale up. Let's go to the next slide and see where we're at. Okay, so this is also representative of another large scale drop. This was all brewed at my shop. I stayed up until about 5 o'clock in the morning brewing coffee for the 8 a.m. drop, which I did a combination of iced coffee so that I could brew ahead of time, and then came back and had someone brewing hot coffee in there, and then I came back and like facilitated the delivery with Odeco and Beth Israel. Beth Israel wanted to do a big like cafe in a a large room that they had, I suppose, like a lobby or a conference room, and they set up a bunch of these 3-gallon containers, and we supplied them with some nutritious snacks and all the condiments and cups and containers of coffee for 1,200 people, which is basically the entire hospital. So that was really cool. That was a pretty proud moment when we pulled that off. We did it in 2 runs. We did an AM and a PM, so that both hospital workers usually go in the morning, and then they're off at around 7, and then the second shift, the night shift, starts at 7. So we did a drop at about 8:30 and in the morning, and then a drop at 7 p.m. Let's see what the next slide is. So this is just more of the same photos of them getting their food and drink. We can go back a couple of slides to the bike near Central Park. There we go. Yeah. So this was our actual first drop, where we only dropped off 2 boxes of coffee, which serves about 25, 30 people. But there were about 25, 30 workers in Central Park building the field hospital. And this gentleman to the left is the owner of Terra Luce e Vino, which is the restaurant that is doing the project Feed the Front Lines, which is who I contacted to see about setting up this model for myself and making sure that we're also filling the need for coffee. His daughter just got furloughed a month ago from Harvard. She was studying at Harvard, and she came back, and this was, her passion project was to try to get her dad and his restaurants feeding hospital workers. And so we had a great phone call, and at the end of the day, they helped me a lot. We figured out that, it might be better if I just set up my own source of funding and I just set up my own delivery system, which I did. But I'm incredibly grateful for the time that they spent with me so that I could learn a little bit about how to do it safely, what they had been doing, and also the structure that they had in place for taking in revenue. And it's very similar to what my business. They're a restaurant. I'm a coffee shop. They're not a 501c3. Neither am I. So I got to ask them a lot of questions about that. It looks like they're going to eventually turn what they have into a 501c3 and maybe do this for the long term. I don't know. We'll see what happens and how successful it is on my end, but I won't leave that possibility out for sure. But they didn't tell us they told us where we were going and where we were meeting them. But they were like, we can't really tell you where it's going, like as in what it's for yet. And then when we arrived, because I don't believe the press had been yet like alerted or had taken photos or anything, and there wasn't any tents up. There were just a bunch of workers in the field drinking coffee. And then they told us, what it was going to be, what was going to be built there, that was a shocker. That was kind of the first reality check with this. So this is NYU Langone. There's several hospitals conveniently located up and down the First Avenue corridor. My shop is on Third Avenue, so that just gives you an idea of how incredibly close it is. There is Beth Israel at 16th Street. Then up at like 25th, 27th Street, there's Bellevue Hospital, and then NYU Langone is up at 34th Street. So this is Katie Keats, or Katie Peets, who owns Keats. That's a tongue twister. She's a small producer that I've been buying these really healthy, nutritious, ready to eat energy bites from. I kind of thought, when I'm working a shift and I'm fatigued and I really need to eat, but I have a lot of things to do, sometimes I don't, or I'm stressed, I don't really want to sit down and eat a big meal, but I do need sustenance. Something has to get into my body. And I thought, why don't I add additional things like what we would serve at a cafe that are good grab and go, easy stuff, and they're individually packaged, and so it's all nice and sanitary. I bought all of Katie's. I committed to buying all of Katie's product that she has on hand in her storage facility in Long Island City, or Industry City, which is a big packaging facility that a lot of food places bake and run their stuff out of. But point being, Katie was able to sell off all of her product to me, and I was able to give her money for it. Whereas, like, until then, she was not selling a single packet of it, and it was just going to sit there. And hold until the pause. So another example of trying to support the supply chain. Go to the previous picture. Yeah, so another person, another life represented here is Megan, who is an out of work barista who lives a 5-minute walk from the shop that um, I met a few weeks ago through a friend. And I remembered that Megan was looking for work and had been laid off, and that she was in the neighborhood. So I contacted her. I don't have many staff that are in my neighborhood to help. Otherwise, I would give priority to my own staff members. But I was just happy to be able to have somebody come into the space, fold boxes, make some coffee, and get paid in cash, of course. So we can go to the next slides. This is Kings County Hospital. This is NYU. This is NYU Langone. This is a nursing home and nursing center in Harlem. This is Woodhull Medical Center in Brooklyn. Columbia Hospital, which is all the way uptown. This is a scooter that, we can stay on this for a second, that the company Revel reached out to me. They saw what I was doing on and posting stuff on Instagram, and they messaged me and said, would it be helpful if we gave you a free 30-day membership to our, rideshare scooter company? And I was like, yes, it would. It's not the primary way that things get there, but now I have the ability, if I get a contact that says, in like an hour, we'd really like a pot of coffee, boom, I can put it on the scooter. And if it's one of those 3 or 4 hospitals on that First Avenue corridor, it's there in, as fast as I can brew it, and it takes me 10 minutes. What's next? I like to decorate the boxes. And I want people to know that they need to reach out and fill out the form on our website, which you can get to through everymanespresso.com or fuelfrontlines.com. They just fill out that form and it emails me, and then I get back to them like as soon as possible. And I either text them or email them and ask them, when do you want me to show up? And repeat all the details that they gave me in the email. That's it.
Cool.
Who's that?
Yeah. Thanks, Sam. We'll do a little discussion, and we have some questions for you. But now let's shift to Jeff. You've got a completely different, shifting from the big city to you're based in a small town, right?
Yes, I am. Yeah. So I'm in San Clemente, California. We're on the very tail end of Orange County, right on the other side of Camp Pendleton. So like if anybody's going down to San Diego, most people drive through our city and complain about the traffic. So we are known for having a bunch of surfers and whatnot. It's a small little sleepy town. But really similarly, like we saw a desperate need to be able to connect with our regulars, kind of like how Sam was connecting with, like what I was hearing from Peter is that a lot of these people who work at the hospital were people that were regulars of yours that were already going to your cafe. And so, yeah, so I'm down here in San Clemente. What else should I say? Where should I go? What should I talk about?
Good. Let's see your slides.
Okay. All right. So, we tried to get ahead of the concerns and need for social distancing down here in San Clemente. It's not an epicenter like New York City. So there's a lot of people who take it very seriously, like they should, and then there's some people who don't, and trying to be able to find a way to be able to have a business model that keeps our customers served, being extremely possible. We jumped on this whole idea of delivering really similarly to what Sam was describing, that we had a lot of coffee left over and a lot of produce left over from just all of our avocado toast and eggs and everything else. And so we started that first week after we had to shut down our 2 cafes in Dana Point and San Clemente. We started just putting it out there like, hey, we have these things. We know they're hard to find at the local grocery stores, just from hearing around town and whatnot. So we ended up dropping off all of our really good ripe avocados and cage-free eggs, and everybody liked it enough that we took a step back and tried to keep it going, and then it just steadily expanded. So this is actually an image we similar to Sam writing on the bags. You can tell the difference. My handwriting's on the top, our friend's handwriting's on the bottom. That's really, really good. So we had a friend who's one of our graphic designer friends that lives in town. She came in and wanted to be able to write specific notes to everybody that's ordered. So people can order from our website, and we took their information and we're able to deliver it to all the local cities. But one of the main reasons why we're doing things the way we're doing is that we want to be able to also make sure that our community stays connected. Being a small town, I think one of the biggest things we've had a hard time with is, like, everybody can get coffee. Like, it's, you can order it, you can get it from Starbucks, you can Postmate it, it's fine. A lot of the complaints and concerns weren't really complaints, they just missed everybody seeing each other. We're right at the beach, and so a lot of people would make entirely family events out of taking their family down to the beach, go to Bear Coast, say hi to us, petting dogs, kissing babies, like all the kind of things you'd expect, and they're missing that. So we've done a couple of unique things as far as writing notes on the bags. We've actually created a couple of Zoom meeting backgrounds of our cafe and our view. So when people are getting coffee with their friends and whatnot, they can just have those pictures in the background as well. And yeah, let's go to the next slide. Let's see what else we got. It's really simple. We don't use Square at our cafe. We started getting into the delivery process before Square's delivery system was set up. So what I ended up doing was jimmy rigging our Shopify website. So our website, where you would order for, like, if you lived in New York and you ordered coffee, you would order it off bearcoastcoffee.com. I just did a subsect of it, which is Bear Coast Pantry, and everything on there has a different shipping coordination so that we take all that information and we're able to print off the orders every morning and do same day delivery. And this is just an example of how we lay it all out. We just take all the orders, lay them out for the day, and start partitioning it out like you would imagine any other kind of delivery service or whatnot. We have stuff like you can see there, we have a local, I was really liking, once again, what Sam was saying is that there's a lot of vendors that are good friends of ours that we wanted to support, and other coffee shops in Orange County, like Neat Coffee, has also been doing a lot of the same stuff. That you could see a kombucha bottle there in the background. Fermented Kombucha partnered up with Neat recently, and they're doing a big giveaway to be able to keep supporting each other. Tico Rico, it's a hot sauce company from a dude that lives up the street that we love, and so we've been offering that on our website as an offer for delivery as well. And even that 8-ounce cup is actually filled with our version of healthy snacks, which is called the Meet the Source, is the name of the non-bakery that we use, but it's just this really great organic, gluten-free snack provider that we have, and they make these things called Bliss Balls that are really, really good, and they're healthy. And once again, just like Sam was describing with those snacks, we're providing those out to a lot of our customers, so letting them order that and support them as well. Let's go to the next slide. And this is just an example. We've been partnering up with a lot of our graphic designers to be able to have them, to pay them to come out with our new labels for our bags of coffee, because designers and whatnot, a lot of them are independent contractors and cannot support themselves with unemployment as easily. So we've been working with them, designing some bags. That's a mural of another one of our designers in the background. And we've just seen a massive amount. We started off by trying to sell through stuff that we thought were going to go bad. And then we ended up selling through it so quickly that, like, we had to start roasting like crazy to be able to keep up with the demand that we've had. So this image is actually just literally to show that, like, there's a higher demand now for people brewing at home than ever. So trying to be able to keep up with that and giving them a safe way to get that by delivering has been that, like, little key that's made it possible for us to stay even more relevant. So they wanted coffee, but rather than getting it from Amazon or any other place, we just say, no, we'll just stay home, we'll bring it to you. Next slide. Eggs. My dad calls me every once in a while just to check in. He's like, hey, how's coffee going? I'm like, Dad, I don't even sell coffee. I sell eggs, avocados, and yeast. Like, we sell so much of that stuff right now. It's going from being a barista to being a yeast man was not something that I was expecting to have happen. It's been real. I was talking to my managers in a meeting we had before we started shipping out the other day. It's just like, we're in the service industry, and there's a skill that we have, that Sam has, that we've all had, which it comes to coffee understanding, extraction, and presentation. All that kind of stuff is really unique. But what we are at the core of what we do is service. And whether it's serving the people that need coffee at a hospital, or the fact that we have a lot of local people, specifically people who are a little bit older, who don't have access to eggs and non-dairy milks and all the stuff that was a lot more difficult to get at the one Ralph's they had access to. This is an example that we just pack, but we got a whole bunch of egg cartons and just pack them up and ship them out. And we did a massive egg sale for Easter, discounted them a lot for people with kids, and gave them the old school recipe to dye them. It was fun. Next slide, please. And the majority of what we've been selling that's in-house, you can see the 8-ounce cups down there. Those are the healthy snacks. Middle shelf is just a bunch of cold brew, just iced coffee. And then we started we make all of our own almond milk in-house. And that was a big demand just for a lot of people who are wanting to have that and stay healthy and use that for a lot of the recipes at home. So we've been just almond milking like crazy, and then also stuff that we used to only use in our cafe, like our syrups we all make in house. We have a lavender caramel that we use for one of our famous beverages, and it's gluten-free and it's vegan, and a lot of people liked it. And so we've now been bottling that up, packaging it in a way that we can even ship it. We've shipped it all over to North Dakota and everything else. So once again, it's taken a lot of stuff that was only served in the cafe and figuring out a way to make it mobile. Next slide. And this is just an example. This is the first weekend we ever did deliveries. And now that was all of the orders for the day. Now we have roughly about 6 times that on a given Friday and Saturday. And so what that's given us the opportunity to do, and what we posted on our Instagram, is we have a lot of baristas that are able to act as our delivery drivers, full masks, everything else. But they pull up, we load their cars up, and if anybody out there is watching this, it's easy to do delivery with a lot of with free applications out there. You live in New York and whatnot, I'm sure it applies there as well. But the Google, for instance, all you have to do is be able to put in all the addresses and add stops, and then it arranges how you can be able to deliver them all. So it's like all these things that, as a barista, how do the pizza delivery guys do it? It's all on there, and we figured out how to do that. And we've done a systemized training for our staff, so they're able to pick it up within one day and just start dropping everything off. Next slide. And yeah, that's just an example. It's a flat lay of the stuff that we're selling. We're going through a lot of the mugs that we have, a lot of the oat milk that we get from Califia, and then of course our matcha provider, and just so many Californians love avocados. So we are the avocado provider for San Clemente right now, and it's been pretty great. And then just a lot of bulk coffee, rather than just 12-ounce bags, selling it now in 2-pound and 5-pound increments for all those families that didn't realize how much coffee they actually drank in a day. And yeah, I think that's about it. I don't know if there's anything else. Oh, yep, there's a really sexy shot of our lavender caramel. Next slide. And that's it. It's been crazy.
Cool.
It's been a weird pivot, but it's been an easy way for us to be able to stay connected with our community and still support our baristas, if anything, by letting them know that beyond just unemployment and helping them out with that paperwork, we're doing everything that we can to be able to make sure that we're thinking about them and that we're trying to help them out.
Thanks, Jeff. That was awesome. Great look. Thank you, Sam, for giving us a peek inside your actual journey to the hospital. That was so cool to see, kind of to be able to imagine what it looks like for you. Kind of a quick 2-part question for both of you. Were you doing delivery beforehand? And then if you weren't, take us inside your mind and give us a little bit of a peek into kind of your pro-con list when this whole thing happened, about should I just close down and stay at home, or should I try and actively start building something like delivery service? Take us inside a little bit of that decision process that both of you went through.
Sure. I mean, hell no, we weren't doing delivery. I was maxed out. I felt like I was maxed out with what I had going on, and I couldn't do a single thing more. And the truth is that wasn't really true. It was just that I didn't want to take the risk of setting up another revenue stream that would detract from my main revenue stream that could, maybe it wouldn't go well. It's a risk that you would have to take. And also in New York City, getting anything anywhere is a nightmare. No one has cars like everyone else in the country does. And basically, when we were doing catering things, I have run a catering business called Everyman To Go for the past 6 or 7 years. And the hardest thing for many years has been, how do we get our equipment to the location? It's not a huge amount of stuff, so it's not like it's really worth it to go out, rent a truck, and hire a driver, and things like that. So it's really challenging to get anything delivered. But luckily, two things are happening right now, which is that there's no traffic, and there are free hands, and people with their capacity changed. Now they don't have the work that they used to have, and they want to do this work. So that really sets up the opportunity to be able to do what I'm doing. But the pros and the cons, if I think I would just say the big pro out of this is that I proved to myself that I could do something like this, that I could do it successfully. And even as I watch Jeff talk through the things that he's doing, I think, wow, a lot of those things I would assume will probably stay with you after this is all over, and you'll have found a new revenue stream and a new side of your business that maybe you could continue. Maybe not everything, but some things. Maybe people.
Yeah, I don't know about yeast. I'm not sure about yeast, but everything else. Yeah.
But like your caramel syrup with the lavender that you already make, maybe people will become used to buying that during this break, or they'll get used to going to you for certain things, and maybe that will continue afterwards. Now that I've shown myself how easy it is to get on one of these scooters and bring this box of coffee, which I didn't know there was a disposable container that was that large before. Otherwise, I would have been using them for my catering business nonstop, like instead of bringing and dropping off Fetco urns and retrieving them. So I hope that the big pro to all of this in the end it is that my business has some things that we tested out when we had the time to, when we had nothing else to do and we needed to pivot, that some of the things that I've learned will stay with me long after this. That answers.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Sam. That was great. Yeah. How about you, Jeff?
I could just say ditto, but I think that maybe we could say a little bit more. I think to preface this all, I think in specialty coffee, and especially as business owners, there are stories and framework that we provide for ourselves that they kind of give us the drive that we have, the focus that we have, but it can also be the limiting factors that we have. Whereas like all of us on this panel work in specialty coffee, and I've been a barista for so long that I never wanted to do delivery. The degradation of beverages, obviously there's no guarantee they're going to get their beverage hot. How many negative reviews are we going to get because they waited too long, because they were talking to a friend? Like little things like that I had convinced myself of that prevented me from entertaining it. And then it's also in general, the capacity that people have right now also factors into your staff. Your staff, a lot of the time as a business owner, they're very resistant to change, and for better or worse. And so if I came to them out of this COVID-19 situation and said, hey, we're doing delivery, the pushback would be reasonably a lot. Like they'd probably say no, that we're already doing a lot, because they were and are working really, really hard. And just like Sam was saying, prior to this, I felt like I was at capacity. We were very busy cafes, trying to make sure that all these staff members are taken care of, trying to make sure that we're expanding and using all of our faculties to the best of our ability. But this just kind of turns it on its head and reframed how I looked at myself as a business owner and looked at my cafe as a business. So I definitely thought about not opening up. We closed down. About half a day, I took a bottle of wine, sat in my backyard and thought about it, because of the fact that the other thing that was on the horizon is I have 2 kids, and my wife has a full company as well with 8 employees and whatnot. And so she and I were trying to figure out, like, is this just an opportunity for me to shut Bear Coast down and help out with the homeschooling and everything else? But one, my wife told me, no, don't do that. You're throwing a pity party. That's ridiculous. But in addition to that, I think it was a matter of similar to what Sam was saying, but also in what we can show our staff members in our community. It's like, look, this is scary, but we're still here. Like, this is gnarly, but we're not going anywhere. Like, we're a part of your normal life. We provide a lot of connection to community. We care about you. And even though the news is frightening, like, being able to tell people that is more important than the beverages that we have. And so that was the big reason why I was like, F it. All right, let's sell avocados. We're gonna do this. And we've seen a lot more benefit of just notes being left, Instagram conversations, phone calls from regulars. I found out how many of my regulars have my phone number, which I had no idea, because I'm getting a lot of text messages and phone calls. And so I'd say, to wrap this up, it's just that if I was a business owner watching this, I think one of the biggest things that I would do is I would spiral and look at how overwhelming everything is, rather than being able to look at what is one thing that you have that you can offer to be able to stay connected with your community. For us, it was delivery. For other people, like my friends at Hopper and Burr, they've been doing pickup, but they've also been doing great videos and whatnot as well. And it's just coffee shops are a really unique portion of our society in the fact that we provide that regularity and connection that no other industry does. And being able to make sure that we continue to deliver and do these things was a big catalyst for any of us to keep on doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I wanted to
go
say
ahead.
one thing about the
Yeah.
because you touched on how you felt about shutting down and everything. So I want to talk about that for a second. So what we did was we had kind of a day by day, week by week plan, which we couldn't think that far ahead of, So when we realized, that this was getting super serious, the first step was like safety protocols so that we could continue to operate, meaning like, of course, sanitizing, but also getting down to there only being one person, one barista in the space, so that and sanitizing everything at shift change and not interacting at shift change, so that we could effectively say, when you come to work, you're the only worker. And then we made measures that got more extreme over like a week or 2 week period, in which we got customers further away from the staff until it pretty much ended up being our last week of service was just door service only at all of the cafes. And I think at 13th Street, for the most part, that last week I was the only one working. And what we were trying to do in that respect was we were waiting and researching what was going to be available through the bill, the stimulus bill, and trying to gauge when was that going to pass, so that we could make the decision to just go ahead and shut down, let all of our staff know what they should be expecting from the government, and then not just leave them to it, but rather to like have regular check-ins and walk them through any questions that they have from us, or get resources to them. And at this point, everyone is either furloughed and collecting their unemployment, and and most people have received their stimulus checks. So really, what we wanted to do was get everybody home, get everybody paid, and when we pivoted, we did that knowing that we had about a week left in service at the retail shop on 13th Street and our other stores. And so we made that transition kind of like over the week, the last week in service. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The one thing that I was wondering about, and you guys have touched on this a little bit already, was whether like who exactly you're serving. I think both of you have talked about your regulars, and maybe that's where it's beginning. But I'm wondering if that's starting to expand a little bit. Are you still just really focusing on your regulars, or people that were already coming into your shop, or is that starting to change a little bit? Jeff, maybe you could start there.
We are definitely expanding to groups of people that normally wouldn't. We're in a small surf community, and so you can imagine there's people who are in love with our style of coffee, and then there are people who are not. They want to be able to have their $1 cups of coffee just from the AM PM and whatnot, just because of the nature of where we are. And so we've had the wonderful challenge of trying to navigate that, being the type of coffee shop that we are, but now serving the way we are, those I sometimes refer to them, those old salty surf dogs that just want cheap coffee still kind of want to have a bunch of avocados and eggs. And so we're able to serve them in a way that they're like, oh, cool, Bear Coast is doing this thing. So we've been able to expand that steadily each week and being able to use some of the old school marketing that we've used to be able to get our cafes busy. We're now using to be able to get this busy, like including just direct mailers, which if anybody doesn't know how to do a direct mailer, just message me on Instagram and I'll tell you how to do it. It's really stupidly effective. And then also a lot of Facebook, at least it's getting more expensive now. Facebook ads really decreased when it came to its conversion cost for a little while because everybody was freaked out and so no one was advertising. So a lot of us local people that wanted to advertise were able to get it going a little bit more. So I was able to target a lot more local people who are not regulars of ours. And so we've been doing that. And then of course, little things like you might have seen on one of the slides, we have inserts that just encourage people to be able to post about us on their stories and amongst their friends and whatnot. And we give out a $25 gift card once a week just to be able to let people know that sharing means a lot to us and stuff. But yeah, if you're serving a different product, you're going to reach a different customer. And especially if you change the model and way you serve, like my wife and a lot of my friends, when I first was getting into good coffee, they would be scared to order at some of the fancier shops. And I can only imagine that's how some people feel about going into a cafe like mine, but they'll happily have stuff delivered to them. So it's been cool to see that expand and see people really surprised and really stoked to be able to have all that stuff show up at the door that normally wouldn't come to Bear Coast.
Interesting. What about
Yeah.
you, Sam?
Well, in our last couple of weeks in which we were still serving, we closed on the 4th of April. I did notice that, of course, along with all of our daily regulars that were still in town, we were the only coffee shop open. Probably not in Manhattan, but I mean, it could be quite possible. And that the idea that I just said that like blows my damn mind. But basically, there wasn't anywhere else to go, and so people were rerouting their routines, and they found us and found that we were open. And so I did meet a lot of new people while the retail store was still open, and that was a great feeling and a good opportunity to make connections with other people in the neighborhood. And I think it really communicates to our neighborhood how much we care and how service oriented we are about the community, because I knew that I was winding it down to close, even though we didn't really tell the customers that, because I didn't know when that was going to happen, and it was a day by day type of situation, as I'm sure we're all familiar with now. But what I did want to do was give people the chance to kind of say, here's my contact information. That way I could go through every day that we were open for that last week. I could see my regulars, and those of them that I didn't have contact information for, I could get, some of the elderly folks that live around here, so that I could just keep an eye on them, and reach out to them and see how they were, and kind of maintain the value of the cafe and the community, even though the cafe's doors are going to be closed temporarily. The spirit and the thing that's so important about the cafe will continue beyond, the closure. And the thing that really broke me up inside with closing, aside from putting people out of work, which we found a way to get them paid and for them to stay home, so that was goal completed. But then the next thing was, wow, we really are going to close this down. What are people going to do? How am I going to connect with them? And that was devastating. but I found a workaround, and I am, I'm in that space pretty much on the daily. And so I do see my neighbors when they're out walking their dogs. I I'm not completely devoid of that connection, and I'm making the effort to strengthen those connections um, by having gotten people's contact information. But you know, we don't just sell coffee. I've always said that we don't just sell coffee. We sell, we sell coffee so that we can provide community. And with the idea of that being under threat, it's not, it's not just, it's not about money. It's not about selling things. It's about the void that it leaves in people's lives, because we do provide um, a service for people and a space to connect with their neighbors. And while that's down, I'm looking for other ways to connect everyone.
Thank you, Sam. That was, you really spoke to me with that. It's just like a thread that I've seen through all of these webinars we've been holding. And one of the things that makes me most proud to just be part of the specialty coffee community is like everyone has that kind of commitment to the community they've built at their shops. And like that's what's important. And whether it's online sales or how we communicate or delivering to hospitals, it's just it's reaffirming for me that it's a great place to work and to be with people like you. So I appreciate that a lot. Um,
A lot of the people, a lot of the people that are, you just start realizing the impact of this on the community, because a lot of our customers, like you said, Peter, are medical workers that go to work at these hospitals. And there's not just hospitals. I mean, there's the eye and ear infirmary, there's lots of medical offices. I mean, there's thousands of them that live in Stuytown or the East Village, or in Murray Hill or Kips Bay, like Gramercy, right around where we're based. And we've been here for 13 years. So some of these people I've known for well over a decade, and have seen them every day. And
yeah,
some of them are vulnerable, and which talk about the things that like make me nervous and make me want to cry. Well, some of them are vulnerable and older, have conditions, and then some of them are the frontline workers. They're doctors that maybe they were in, any doctor that is working at one of those hospitals, whether they're in the field in which they're immediately taking care of COVID patients, are going to be moved. So we're watching our customers volunteer
yeah.
to do that work, which is scary.
So
And it's good to be able to stay in contact with them and their family members. I mean, one of the people that I'm pretty close with is she's a pediatric doctor in the NICU, and she's over 60, and her husband is like a father to me. And I said, why don't you come by and visit me really quickly, and I'll make you a cup of coffee. He's, stressed out. And I was like, I'm at the shop anyway, and, you stay over there and I'll stay over here, and we'll do this safely. And because I want to check in with him about his wife. And that was a hard day, because he just broke down crying, and
yeah,
told me that he was scared because she had volunteered, but both of us almost at the same time said we would do it too. So
yeah.
sorry, not sorry.
No, stories are coming. Have just been amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's
We
obviously many more, and we're all experiencing them together. And so it's good to be able to share a few things. Thank you for doing
Yeah,
this.
well, thank you for being here. There is a question just from the audience that kind of relates in some way to kind of what we're talking about here, specifically on the hospital side. But someone from the audience asked, I have a question about how you can motivate people to donate to your company to be able to help hospitals like you did in New York. I feel like many people think they don't have to help till their loved ones aren't sick. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, it's similar to promoting any business. Uh, you have to you have to, you have to gain trust, I think is the start, is the blanket answer for that. You have to gain people's trust, so you need to be transparent and posting as many photos as you can and documenting everything. You need to have a reliable website that can take the payment securely. So first start with the infrastructure, the transparency, and be ready to be seen. And then you can start with the outreach and promotion. So what we did was, we just went to our community, and one of the things that drove a lot of money in was we have some regular customers who are actors, and they reached out to other people in their community, and they were like, listen, this is important to us. Can you please help these people out? And they like texted and called people personally, and then they donated, and that was pretty significant. Now, those are celebrities, and this isn't about celebrities. Um, this is about community, right? So there's many different types of communities. We know that our industry is a tight knit community, and we know people all over the supply chain and all over the world that work in coffee, and we have really close friends that are spread out in our community, and so do lots of other people. And so if you can get your friends to do outreach on like a personal level, I don't think it matters whether they're uh, big name actors. I think what it's all about is trust and that connection. The other thing that you can do, and you mentioned, Jeff, that there's like Facebook ads and things like that. Then it turns into like all the regular things you would do to support any business, like making sure that you're visible. So whatever that means, whether you promote yourself and pay for some advertising on Facebook, you will start with outreach to your base, and then you will exhaust your base. So you will see a lot of donations in the beginning, and then you will exhaust your base because you have a certain amount of reach, and you've been putting that out there, and then you'll start to see those kind of plateau and maybe decline. And at that point, you're going to need somebody to swoop in with another community that they are reaching out to and keep going. And you need to develop a press release. Some people maybe have never done that. It's easy. You just write down all the details and make sure it's accurate, include some photos into a document that you could send to your local news stations and whomever you think of would listen, any food writers, any press that's related to coffee, like Sprudge, or or tagging yourself even on or just trying to make sure that what you're doing is visible. But start with the infrastructure, move on to your base and your community and do outreach, and then just keep reaching out. And the more work you do on it, the more revenue you'll see. So make sure that you're delegating. If you can delegate the brewing to somebody, if you can delegate the delivery to somebody, if you can delegate the ops to someone, and then that gives you time to fulfill one of those roles in a way in which you're competent. But I've found that at this point we're starting to, I'm starting to delegate. I needed to like figure out what the hell I was doing in the beginning, and then once I felt like there was a structure there, I was ready to hand that off to other people and train them and talk to them about what that role, what it entails and what I expect from it. And then it just does it. They do the work, and you can focus on whatever it is that you're going to be, your role is in the project.
Yeah. Well, listen, both of you, thank you so much for sharing your your expertise and your experience and the resources that you've been able to provide. I know, Jeff, you mentioned a few resources that people can reach out to you with, and we'd love to share those also on our page dedicated to this webinar series. So thanks for offering that. And I just really encourage anyone who's watching the webinar to reach out to us and let's help continue to get those resources out. But anyway, thanks for sharing all the experience and then thanks for being advocates for coffee and community, as you both are. So, you know, really appreciate you joining us for this, and thanks also to the audience for watching. And we'll see you in the next webinar series. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you for being a friend.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Your heart is true.